Hi, my name is Ricardo, and in today's video we're going to talk about the following bill. Now I know that's a mouthful and you might be asking, what has this got to do with me? Stick around and find out. Now before we get into the detail, firstly I want to say a big thank you to those who liked and shared the previous videos. I really appreciate it. I must say that this video, I think it's so important. I think it is perhaps one of the most important videos that I've done, and it's so relevant to non-profit organizations operating in South Africa. So as we go through this video, I suggest that you keep in mind the following themes. The one is that even though there are changes being introduced to this one act, there are other changes also being introduced, and those changes are broadly relevant, in terms of the purpose of the act. So there is the broader context in terms of what's the purpose of the bill, what's the objectives that the bill is trying to achieve, and that's important. There's information out, on the internet, on YouTube, and it's important to have an appreciation of the broader context. Thirdly, the issue of collaboration is important between different institutions. This act specifically, or the bill specifically, talks about collaboration between the NPO director and other institutions. And then also there's a focus on compliance. Firstly, compliance in terms of compulsory registration, but then also compliance in terms of submitting prescribed information. So those are the 5 key areas in terms of this bill that we're going to focus on. It's not going to be a detailed video. I just want to give a heads up in terms of proposed amendments. So if we look at the preamble of the bill, there are basically 6 changes being proposed. The one is compulsory registration in terms of the Act. Secondly, it's the ability for the NPO director to collaborate, cooperate, and coordinate and to enter into arrangements with other organs of state. And thirdly, it's to require NPOs to submit prescribed information about the office bearers, control structure, governance, management, administration, and operations of the NPOs to the Director for NPOs. And fourthly, it's to require prescribed information relating to those aspects that I've just identified. And then also fifthly, to provide for grounds of disqualification of office bearers of organizations, and also to provide for the removal of office bearers. Now that's a slide in terms of what Section 2 of the Act looks like at the moment. Now if that section is amended, this is what it would look like. See, the inclusion of must, meaning that the organizations must now register in terms of the NPO Act, and also it's no longer focused on encouraging the organizations to maintain adequate standards of governance, transparency, and accountability. It would be aimed at requiring those organizations to do so if the bill gets promulgated in its current form. Interesting part, however, is that organizations will now be required to register in terms of the NPO Act. Now there are 2 important definitions in the Act, in the NPO Act. The one is a definition of a non-profit organization, and then there's the other definition of a registered non-profit organization. There used to be that distinction because not all organizations are required to be registered up until now, but if the bill comes into force in its current form, then all organizations, non-profits, even foreign organizations operating in South Africa, will be required to be registered in terms of the Non-Profit Organizations Act. Suppose the organization is not registered. In terms of the bill, there would be a requirement on the organization, even though it's not registered for any reason, to comply with the requirements of the NPO Act. And that would mean requiring with the new requirements introduced in terms of the NPO Act. Again, if the bill comes into force in its current form. So when we deal with the issue of compliance, organizations will be required to submit the following prescribed information as part of their reporting, and that would be information about the office bearers, the control structure, governance, management, administration, and operations of the organization. So the director must keep the information in the register, in the prescribed form, and also provide access to the information in the register and make it available to any person as prescribed. So at the moment we don't know who the prescribed persons would be, but that would obviously be clarified in terms of regulations. Also, it is proposed that a new chapter, Chapter 3A, be introduced in the NPO Act, and there's a lot of information in terms of the sections under that chapter, but in essence what it comes down to is that there would be criteria for the qualification of office bearers and also for the removal if they don't qualify in terms of the criteria. So a lot of information, and I would really encourage you to read through that. Interestingly enough, the chapter would also permit the NPO director to remove an office bearer if it fails to perform satisfactorily any duty imposed upon the office bearer by or under the NPO Act, or to comply with the requirements of the Act or any lawful request of the director. So obviously one of the questions is, what happens if you don't register in terms of the NPO Act, or if you don't comply with the reporting requirements? Because what's happening now is that the organization might be deregistered, and so it is it's a valid question. So in essence, the bill proposes that a new offence be created, and that offence will deal with those who fail to perform with any duty imposed in terms of the Act or any requirement in terms of Section 12. Now the duty would be the duty to register, obviously, in terms of the Act. If you fail to comply with that, then it's offence. It's an offence, and also the requirement proposed in terms of new reporting requirements in terms of what should be submitted to the NPO directorate. If you don't comply with that, then by implication, the bill is saying that it should be an offence. So it's important for organizations to firstly understand the implications and content of the bill. So I would really encourage you to engage with the bill, to understand what it means in a broader context, but also to understand what it means for the organization. And secondly, to decide whether or not the organization should make comments. Now, obviously, I think there will be organizations that will coordinate this process, that would facilitate comments. If you think it is important to participate in that process, please do, and also alert other organizations if you do consider it's important for that process. But understand what it would mean for the organization. Now, there isn't a long period in terms of submitting comments. The document has been out in the public domain for quite a while, but I think it's quite an important document, important amendments that are being proposed, and therefore it's important, I think, for the organizations to at least have an understanding in terms of what the implications are of the bill. Thank you so much. I hope you've liked this video. Please click on the like button, and if you do think that it is important for other organizations, please share this video. I'm sure there'll be a lot of articles that will come out, so just scan the internet and find out just to get a better understanding in terms of this bill. Thank you.